our introduction's cutting it a little short, but we should be able to squeeze most of it into the next hour. Maybe we might go over if we do go past 8:30. You guys are free to go. We might end up rolling over. We'll see how it goes. But the Iliad, one of the classic works of ancient Greece. So Homer, the poet, is known for both it and the Odyssey, as we were discussing a few moments ago. The Iliad comes from the most ancient of Greek texts. So the Iliad is so old it comes before the written word was even a thing. That's how old the Iliad is. The Greeks hadn't even started writing letters whenever this story started being told. It was passed down through oral storytelling. So the people would learn the story. People didn't have Netflix back in 1000 BC, right? So the oral storytellers would remember the story word for word, and they would tell the story, and they would pass it on down to the next generation, so forth and so on. So that's how the story came to be. You kind of have to ask yourself, I wonder how much of the story changed over a few generations, right? Because even without it being written down, right, it probably changed throughout time. But it's a classic story. I gave you guys some basic mythology videos and stuff, but it's about the Trojan War and the heroes of the Trojan War. We have two sides, Greece and Troy, and the city of Troy. The city of Troy is said to be in modern day Turkey. That they actually dug up the city, so we know the city was real. Whether there was an actual Trojan War or not, we don't know that. We do know that city existed, and so it's the story of the Greek gods and their scheming, and the great heroes of the battle. The stories about heroism. That's about duty and country and patriotism and love and much, much more. So one of the great stories ever written. So the Trojan War, I'll tell you guys this story real quick, and then we'll kind of get into the characters. But the Trojan War supposedly started because the Greek gods are known to be scheming. They're known to be conniving. They don't really like people that much. We're just their playthings. So that goes for almost every one, whether we talk about Zeus or Apollo or Poseidon or Athena. Right, we can kind of come up with a catalog. I have another video up that I did at a theater last week where I sort of chronicled who each of the Greek gods are. But the Greek gods aren't really out to help humanity. They're often vain. They're power hungry. In ancient Greece, there really wasn't a heaven. So if you died, pretty much everybody went through a form of hell. They did believe that your soul could be reincarnated. They did believe that. But the ancient Greek religion wasn't the most hopeful religion to be part of. But this story is not only about the heroes, it's about the gods. Who are the gods picking sides with in this war? But the war starts because the Greek goddesses, being vain, they wanted to have a competition. They wanted to go to a human guy and say which one of us is the most fair. So the three goddesses who went to this guy were Hera, the goddess of women and motherhood, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, and Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and sexuality. They went to this guy Paris who is this shepherd guy. That's who the city's named after, by the way. He's named after this story. But they went to the Paris. So which one of us is the most fair? One of you guys take an educated guess. You guys know how us men are, right? So which one do you think Paris picked? Did he pick the Bella?
Aphrodite all the way.
Aphrodite, right? He's not about the good mother. He's not about the smart. He's all about the beauty, right? The sexuality. So she gives him a prize. She gives him the prize of the most beautiful woman in the whole world. That prize is Helen of Troy. We learn a little bit about Helen in book 6, but Helen's the prize. The problem is Helen is already married. She's married to Menelaus, a Greek king, and thus her falling in love with Paris because of the god's tricks. It starts this whole war between the two countries. So as far as the gods and their allegiances, I think you guys probably got a little bit of that in the story. Hera and Athena are definitely both on the Greek side. It's actually Athena who gets Hector killed, right, because of that cheap trick she played on him. Apollo and Aphrodite are on the Trojan side. Apollo's the sun god. He's the one cursing the Greeks at the beginning of the story. And Aphrodite takes their side mostly because Paris thought she was beautiful, right? So and Zeus is kind of in the middle, right? Zeus doesn't want to pick sides. He's sympathetic to Troy, but he knows if he helps them out too much, he knows that Hera is going to nag him to death. He doesn't want that. I mean, so not only do we have the story of the war, we have the story of the Greek gods and their involvement involved. Do you guys have questions for me about any of the Greek gods and how they might have what their role was in the story? Because there's a ton of them. I named you the biggest players.
Well, I had a question. If you thought that that was why Athena was on the side of the Greeks, was because of what happened, because she didn't get picked. Because I remember it mentioned something about it, and then it mentioned how her brother Apollo was on the other side, and that it didn't matter how much he kicked and screamed and moaned, that wasn't going to change anything. So it kind of made me feel like, because they're kind of, it's a show for them. So it kind of made me feel like that brother sister hate, and they're like just this side and that side, kind of just because of them too.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of sibling rivalry between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah, Athena has, the Greeks gave Athena a lot of reverence. The city of Athens, of course, is named after Athena. So yeah, she has always mostly been associated with the Greeks, especially because of the amount of reverence and respect that they gave her. Apollo, on the other hand, is oftentimes an enemy of the Greeks. Not just this story, but a ton of other ones. He often gives the Greeks grief. If you read the Iliad, or not the Iliad, if you read the Odyssey, he also causes some problems in that story too. So yeah, tracing their motivations and why they're taking sides is an interesting thing. But that's my answer to you there, Kaylee. She's pretty much always pro-Greek. What did I answer your question, Kaylee? To your satisfaction? She kind of froze up. On me there. So
I lost everything for a minute. Sorry.
you're good. I pretty much said Athena is always. She's pretty much always pro-Greek. They give her a lot of reference and respect. The city of Athens is even named after her. So she, in most legends, is always on the Greek side. And Apollo's usually not. He's often an enemy to the Greeks. Even in the Odyssey, he shows up and causes some problems for Odysseus. So, but Apollo starts causing problems early in the Iliad because basically the Greeks are taking concubines. They're taking female sex slaves pretty much. And that's part of war, right? You take all the spoils, including women, in the ancient days. And Apollo gets mad because they take his seer, right? They take his seer out of his temple. So as one of these slaves. So that is why he's cursing the Greeks at the beginning. He's pretty much cursing them with the plague. A bunch of them are dying at the beginning of the story. And that's how the story kicks off. Right? They're kind of arguing, what should we do with this concubine? Agamemnon is the king of all the Greek nations. He's kind of the agreed upon king of all the Greeks. And we learn that the concubine belongs to Achilles, our main hero for the Greeks. And Agamemnon's like, you got to give her. No, I got it wrong. The Apollo's concubine belongs to Agamemnon. So Agamemnon's forced to give her up so that Apollo will lift the curse. And he gets mad because he has to do that. He's spiteful. So he tells Achilles, well, I have to give up my lady, right? So I'm going to take yours because I'm the king and I can do it. Well, that starts a whole battle of personalities with Achilles. He starts pouting. Right? He's like, I'm not going to fight anymore because you took away my sex slave. Well, that's pretty much what happens in book 1. This is a good way to kind of segue over to talking about our two heroes. Our first one being Achilles. Of course, just to give you guys a little bit of context, then I'll see what you guys think. Achilles was, he's a mythological figure, of course. Achilles is pretty much invincible.
Sorry, super quick. Colton Fry, who was just in here, wanted me to let you know that his computer died, so he has to go get his other one really quick.
All right, thank you, Holly.
No problem.
Hopefully he'll be back with us in a sec. But Achilles is pretty much invincible. He can't die in battle. So reason being, Achilles is half man, half god. His father was a man, but his mother was a goddess named Thetis. And when when Achilles was first born, Thetis dips him in this water that makes him invincible, pretty much. So she kind of dips this baby like head first. She's holding on to the baby's leg, right? She's pretty much dipping him head first in the water. Well, the one part she doesn't dip is right above his foot. Right above his foot, that's called the Achilles heel, right? So if you hear about athletes tearing their Achilles heel, that's Achilles' one weakness. So actually later, well, past the Iliad, Paris actually kills Achilles by sort of cowardly shooting an arrow into his foot. And that's what eventually gets Achilles. So Homer doesn't end the story according to that legend. Homer ends the story with this sort of beautiful character arc. Achilles kind of goes from being really selfish to kind of having to get over it as the play or as the drama continues. So what's Achilles' main attribute? He's prideful. Right? He's prideful. In these epic poems, the characters usually have some big character-defining personality trait. Achilles is by far pride. He gets mad. He gets butthurt. He's done so much for the Greeks, and they're going to take away his slave. Right? So he's very prideful. He's pouts. But the play is, or the whole story is kind of about his character arc. Where does he go from the beginning towards where does he go at the end of book 24? So what did you guys think about Achilles? Did he strike you as being a heroic character? Did his pride maybe get on your nerves?
I thought he was very stubborn to the point that he was kind of ridiculous. I was like, we're in the middle of a war and you're leaving. Seriously, you know what I mean?
I kind of thought he was a little bit of a butthole, for a lack of better terms. Like, I was just straight up like, buddy, really? Really? You have to go do that? Why can't you just think logically for once and actually do something that can help? You know? Like, straight up, he wants to leave in the middle of this war, and everybody's just like, yo, Achilles, we need you. And he's like, nope, I'm out, bye. Like, no.
Of course, we learn what eventually gets him back is Patroclus, who is pretty much Achilles. That's how you say it, Patroclus. Patroclus is Achilles' BFF. Maybe they're a little more than BFF, right? I think that's a pretty commonly accepted interpretation. Patroclus, Achilles' BFF slash lover, right, gets killed by Hector. So Achilles gets mad that Patroclus dies, and that kind of brings him back. So, but it took that, right? All the other Greeks could get brutally murdered by the Trojans, and he doesn't care because he's still pouting. So, so you guys seem to be kind of hard on Achilles, right? What about some of the rest of you all? Are you pro? Are any of you guys pro Achilles? Are you like, yeah, this guy's
I kind of liked Achilles. I mean, he was a little bit of a dick,
right.
but I liked him. He ended up feeling really bad. He couldn't participate, and that he sent, what is it, Patroclus, that he sent him, and that really tore him up. And especially towards the end, you start to like him a little bit more. And you asked that in one of the discussion questions, why we thought they didn't end it with him killing him, because I think maybe they wanted to leave the way you saw Achilles at the end of that instead of him dying, because he ended up having sympathy towards Hector's dad, and so he wasn't all that bad. And the gods wanted him to give the body back, but he didn't have to give him all that time. He made that decision on his own, and he even like warned him about that. He said, Greek god, you have to be on the porch, but it's up to you, because if you're caught out there, then you don't want to be caught out there. So he gets a little softer as it goes on, and I think anybody in his position would have been just as mad.
Yeah, very, very well said, Kaylee. Yeah, he has that character arc, right? He kind of goes from being so full of himself to eventually giving back Hector's body. Right? At first, he's like, "I'm not going to give it back. I'm gonna keep even trying to disfigure Hector's corpse, like because he's that mad that Hector killed Patroclus." So you're exactly right, Kaylee. He even gives the Trojans a military advantage. He gives them like 30 days or something to mourn Hector before the war picks back up again.
And they thought on both sides, Hector had his guy that was the one that was wise with words, and then Achilles was like his father-like guy, and both of them tried to talk him out of fighting and gave him words of wisdom. And it wasn't just Achilles who didn't listen; it was both sides who didn't want any part of not having a war. They just wanted to fight for nothing. It was pretty much like, well, we're gonna have this plague anyway, so we're gonna die of something anyway.
Right. The average
They both
soldier,
ignored the advice.
the average soldier here, right? They don't have really too much to fight for, it seems, right? Yeah, I think he nicely summed up his arc. Everybody would be mad, right, if your best friend got brutally murdered, right? That's a reason to get off your butt and fight again.
Yeah, I agree with both sides, but I think that he was a good example of somebody that's too prideful. You're usually going to have to lay that down and do what's right and do what you're supposed to do, or something's going to end up being an eye opener for you.
Yeah, eventually you got to suck it up, right, and then let go of that pride. Also, Presley, was that a cat I heard over there?
No, there was a bottle or something that fell when I moved my hand because I have to talk with my hands.
I thought I heard a cat over there. So I always get excited every time I hear some cats.
Oh, I am the same way. I love cats.
I will have to show you guys my very obese, toothless cat at some point this semester. She's both obese and she doesn't have any teeth. So, yeah, I will show you her at some point whenever she wanders into the room. Yeah, back to the point, Presley, like, eventually you kind of got to get over yourself, right? So Achilles at least shows the resolve to do that, right? He puts aside his own selfishness for the good of his people. So it's a nice arc that he goes through. He shows a lot of character growth throughout the story. At the beginning of the story, you can kind of see his point too, right? Like, hey, I'm the one who's caused all these victories. You really want to take away my spoils just because you're petty? Agamemnon's petty, right? Like, I would probably be mad about that too, right?
And there's so many people that are stubborn. You could just like offer them the world and they're like, nope, just because. And I kind of saw that. I mean, it doesn't make it right, but there's a lot of people that are like that. They're just hold a grudge or
Yeah.
Offer them the world. No way, just because.
This is all I have to say. This is like a joke comment mostly. Everybody in the Iliad is petty. The end.
You think everybody is?
Maybe.
Yeah.
But I didn't get to like. Well, I read like all the readings and stuff, but like not the full story. So we're only getting like a little bit of it. We're not getting like the full story.
Right. Yeah.
So my opinion might change if I actually get to read the rest of it.
Yeah, what I gave you guys was the main narrative points. A couple of there's 24 books. I gave you guys like 5 of the 20 some. So there is a lot of gaps that you guys aren't getting. I actually went and bought a copy of it the other day at Books A Million, all 24 books. I haven't ever read all 24. I'm thinking I'm going to do that over the next week or two.
One thing I did find super interesting was all the main characters that aren't kind of the major players, like the kings and stuff, like Agamemnon and Paris. The rest of them, it kind of feels like they got completely victimized in like with the entire war, because they're fighting a war that wasn't even theirs to fight, and all of them came to these horrible fates, like Patroclus and Achilles and Hector. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, all of them definitely do. Even after the story, Holly, this is a good way to segue into Hector. Even after the story, if you guys, we'll look at book 6. I'll actually show you guys the famous passage from book 6. So this goes back to my theory that the Norton cuts book 6 out because they like Achilles more than Hector, right? But in book 6, that's when you're first introduced to Hector, and his wife is like, Hector, we're clearly losing this war. Right, let's get the hell out of Dodge. Right, let's go. We have a newborn son here. Right, you really want your newborn son to grow up in slavery, your wife in slavery? If we lose, Hector refuses though. He has to. Hector is a guy who's very patriotic. Right, you can maybe even argue patriotic to a fault. And you guys did not learn this in the reading, but after the war, Hector's baby son is brutally killed. They take the baby and drop him off a cliff. Right. So
It says in the beginning of the book or somewhere in it that the baby died. It didn't say how, but I saw in your video how he did.
yeah, so that's how, right? He's dropped off about a balcony, and his wife is sold into slavery after the.
And he knew that was going to happen.
Right.
He knew that was going to happen, and then it ended up his mom and dad begging him not to go back and fight, just like she begged him not to go and fight. And I thought it was horrible that he decided, because it was over nothing, and it was like all their fates were decided anyway. That's how they thought. And he still chose to leave them like that, knowing what was going to happen. So that bothered me.
Very unrelated, but like I got my cat in here, so hold on. Look at my cat.
Oh.
He's so cute.
What's his name, Bella?
It's a little bit. It's a baby. She's very playful. I had to grab her. I was like, come on. I gotta show you my Zoom people.
Yeah.
We just got her not too long ago.
Yeah.
I know, very unrelated to the Iliad, but cat.
Cats are always relevant, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, you were talking a second ago, Kaylee, about how disturbing it is, right? That Hector knows this is going to happen, but he's prideful too, right? He's prideful in a way, like, I gotta fight, right? I can't be a coward. Like, if I run, people throughout all of history are going to say I'm a coward. I can't go down. He couldn't live with himself after if he did run, I think.
I get that. I understood. I mean, I did get that, but and then the dad felt like he was like the only good kid he had left.
King Priam, right? King Priam was the king of the Trojans. Hector being one of his sons, along with Paris. Paris is seen as useless, right? Because he's the one who caused the war, and he's kind of like sitting up, watching the whole thing go down while everybody else is out fighting, right? We learned that in book 6 too. What we kind of described Hector? What did you guys make of him? Do you feel like his especially his pride to country, his patriotism? Do you think that that's an admirable trait, or do you feel like maybe he's patriotic to a fault here? Because whenever we talk about this text kind of gives, this is a class on Western World Lit, and a lot of these texts have given us, but of course, religious texts as well as secular texts like this, a lot of these texts have given us our values that we hold dear even today. And patriotism is one of those values, right? All of us, all of us have a certain pride in our country. So, and especially our veterans and our military personnel, right? So, do you guys sympathize with Hector here? Or do you feel like maybe he was to a fault? Maybe he should have ran?
Well, you didn't even have to really run because a lot of times it said they could stay within those walls and be safe and avoid things that were unnecessary, and it was all unnecessary. But I think it's good. It's good to be patriotic, and he was very patriotic. But I also think that, especially when like the baby screams at him because he has his stuff on, that's kind of showing you of an afraidness of that type of person. And when he takes it off, and then he's more family oriented. So I mean, it could go either way there. I just feel like he should have been with his family.
Right.
I kind of felt like I've always noticed in like Greek mythology in particular that usually their most admirable traits end up being their biggest weakness. And I guess that's kind of throughout all literature characterization stuff. But what I noticed was Hector is a very big picture person, and he wants to be honorable in the big picture, but he ends up using dirty tactics to get there when he kills Patroclus when he has no chance of winning a fight against him. And that kind of started his downfall, and then ultimately led to his death when he decided to try to be the hero without really thinking before he got into that.
I agree with Holly, but I kind of feel bad for him too, because some of the history that I've learned from Greek mythology in those times, like with Sparta, they would start the young boys already fighting and getting ready to prepare for war. So I feel like if they did that with Sparta, they probably did it with the Trojans and all the other places and people that they fought.
That's a good point, Presley. Those military values were instilled in them from a very early age, Spartans especially. In Greece, right, there was always the two big city-states, the Athens and Sparta. Athens is where all the literature and philosophy and science and all that was done. Sparta was always known for its military prowess. Even from the earliest days of being a toddler, right? Those kids were initiated into being warriors. And it was a cruel society. If a child was born with some type of disability or something, they would actually leave that child out to die, because that's the whole society was rounded in their militarism. So I guess you're kind of arguing here, Presley, that value is maybe indoctrinated Hector to the point that he maybe doesn't feel like he has a choice.
Maybe kind of add on to her point. Well, because of the possibility of him maybe like being indoctrinated into militaristic values, whenever the fight was going on and like he had the option to stay, he could feel like, oh, they don't need me, I'm useless. And I can kind of see him as being like the type to go say, hey, I'll go fight out in the war to prove my worth to people. You know, the whole, I'm going to go down in history for something. I'm not going to be a coward. I want to be remembered for someone being brave and bold and all that stuff. Because we as people tend to be very prideful and very, I want to be known. I want to not be forgotten. And I can kind of see a little bit of that in Hector.
Yeah, he's very much like that. He wants to be in charge. He wants everybody to remember him. He wants to be the hero. But then that the wife talks about how that leaves the kid, like the bastard kid who's not going to be able to do this and who's not going to be able to do that, because that was also big in Greek. If you didn't have your father and you were just had the mom, then you couldn't do a lot of things, and they looked at you a certain way, and he knew that was going to happen to his kid if he went and fought. And if you are going up against a demigod, then you know that you've got a slim to none chance. But he was more worried about himself and his people. So I guess that would be a hard choice.
Yeah, he knows that he's integral to any chance the Trojans have, right? Because he's by far their most skilled warrior. Paris certainly isn't going to do it. Although, ironically, Paris is the one who eventually kills Achilles. So, yeah, somebody's got to pick up the fight. And throughout the story, the Trojans are wiping the floor with the Greeks. Like, the Trojans are destroying them, right? Like, the only reason why the Greeks are even standing a chance is because of Achilles. So, for a while, what actually looks really good for the Trojans. Even by the time the story's over, the Troy is still kind of collecting itself again after Hector's death. But even then, they're at a position of strength. I don't know if you guys know, if I told you guys this in another video, but the war actually ends with the Greeks playing a trick on the Trojans. They build this big horse, the Trojan horse, and hide in it. So the Trojans wake up one day and see there's no more Greek ships around. And they're like, well, they gave up. They went home. So they bring this horse in to celebrate. They all get drunk and all that. And that night, the Greeks come out of the horse and pretty much brutally massacre them all in their sleep when they're unprepared for battle. So the Greeks actually win the war through trickery, like more than bravery and honor and all that. By the time they stoop to that tactic, Achilles is already dead. So honor goes out the window, I guess you could say. Bit of a sad story, right? That's how the Trojans go. Yeah, the poor baby getting thrown off the balcony.
The more I think about it, the more it kind of seems like a cautionary tale between the effects of being overly selfless versus being overly selfish, if that makes sense. Because on one end of the spectrum, you have Hector, who isn't thinking about him and the people in his life, but rather the big picture of Troy. And then you have Achilles, who, by thinking about his own pride, ends up inadvertently getting his best friend killed. So, I mean, it kind of shows like you can't be too much of either, which is, big with the Greeks, is cautionary tales in their stories, like with Icarus and stuff.
I think that was beautifully said, Holly. Like the cautionary tale of both character attributes. Like you have to be a little selfish, even if you're selfless, and vice versa. Like that was very well said.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, you mentioned Icarus, like the story of flying too close to the sun, right? And the wax melts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll ask you guys this. We're kind of debating the merits of these two characters, but do you guys think Homer picks a side throughout this? Or do you think the poet himself is kind of neutral?
I can kind of see him like being more biased towards like Troy in a way, because like the way he's written out the characters. Like Achilles is showing us like a prideful, very look at me, I'm great because I am part man, part God, blah blah blah. I am better than everybody else. Well, Hector is all, oh, I just want to help Troy here, my dude. For lack of better words. Like I just want to help. I'm just trying to do the best I can. I'm just a normal person. And it just sounds like he's more biased towards like Troy in a way, because like the way that Hector feels more humanized to me than Achilles does. And I'm just thinking, oh yeah, he's probably being more biased towards Troy because of the fact that Hector is very humanized and he has like a family. He has a family. He really cares about his country. Blah blah blah. So Hector sounds like a great person. So I'm assuming that Homer is kind of biased towards Troy in a way, maybe.
Yeah, or go ahead, Caleb.
I didn't hear the question because my computer froze up. I was trying to tell you I didn't hear the question.
The question is, do you feel like Homer, the poet, was more pro-Troy or pro-Greek? Or do you think he remained neutral?
I definitely think he was pro Troy because he left that part out of the book. Why would you leave that part out of the book?
Are you talking about the Achilles heel part?
No, about the baby.
All right.
And about him meeting the family and being with them.
Colton, I saw you unmute your mic. You have a thought? Still, you can type in the chat box if you're having problems with your mic. Yeah, Kaylee also argues pro Troy. Any of you guys think the opposite? Any of you guys think he's mostly pro Greek in the story, or maybe neutral?
I think you could consider the fact that he is pro Greek based on where he placed the gods in terms of what sides they were on. Because on one side you have, Hera and Athena for the Greeks, who are, you have like the queen of the gods, and then you have, the goddess of wisdom, and then on the other side you've got like Apollo, who is inserting himself into the war, and you have Aphrodite, who is only on that side because Paris told her she was the prettiest. So I mean, in terms of that, I could definitely see where Homer is kind of more biased towards the Greeks in that way. Almost as if
also
they had more of a right.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I said, and also how he ended the story could put him pro-Greek by not having Achilles killed and stuff.
By making Achilles look more heroic, close to the
Right.
end.
Well, the answer can be ambiguous because historically we don't even know who Homer is.
Right.
It can be either one person or a bunch of oral storytellers just passing one story down through the ages. And that can also make some things ambiguous and weird, and like one person's perspective might be pro-Troy, other ones might be pro-Greek. It's ambiguous, and I kind of like that because it gives like a lot of room for discussion and analyzation.
Yeah, you're exactly. Go ahead, Preston.
Sorry. I think maybe that Homer was neutral because he gives Achilles good and bad traits, and he shows both of Hector and Achilles' faults and their good traits of what they did for their country, and how that both of them, their pride did lead to faults.
So just the way he shows the good and the bad of both, right? He's kind of objective. He's like a historian in that way, right? Yeah, I think some of you guys like you're reading, Bella. I think it's a valid reading, of course, but that's definitely a reading against the grain. Throughout the ages, this is seen as the Greek story, right? So yes, arguing that it's pro-Troy, that's definitely a hot take. But it is interesting that if this story is meant to be Greek propaganda, that Troy is depicted as favorably as it is. Yeah, throughout the ages, Achilles is read as the main hero, and Hector is the antagonist. I think like even the way that it's presented to you in the textbook, right? Achilles is the main hero, Hector's the antagonist. If I wouldn't have given you guys that book 6, and you just read straight out of the textbook, we might not even be having this discussion, right? So funny how that works.
Yeah, I think with that too, maybe the ones that wrote our textbook, where Achilles was part god and part human. In Greek mythology, there's a lot of gods, and they look up to the gods, and maybe that's why they favor him more.
Oh, I was thinking about our book, not Homer. Huh.
Right? Yeah. If we're talking about Homer, we're talking about all 24 of the books. Yeah, our textbook, whoever picked the selections for the textbook, I think they definitely think the story is pro-Greek and not Trojan. And again, that's problematic. That's why I gave you guys that book 6. Book 6 does a lot to humanize Hector. Right? There's that part. I'll show you guys. I'll share my screen.
I like that part where Achilles' mom went to those people where she saved that girl a long time ago, and they had the shield and the helmet and everything built for Achilles, and it went into all this great detail of what it had on it, and it was almost like everything that was in the war, and it was beautiful, and I liked that part. And it also, you asked about the women in the discussion question.
Right.
So some of them are the concubines, and some of them are just, the prizes and stuff that they take, and they do whatever they have to do. And then some of them are like the gods that they, and then there's the women at that place where they've made all that, the shield and stuff like that. So there's different roles of different women. They're not all slaves. And
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that question up, Kaylee. There's lots of interesting women throughout the story.
different.
Yeah, you have Andromache, who is Hector's wife. Right? She's who we've been kind of discussing a lot. Yeah, she is definitely one. You have Hector's mother, right? The queen. She's an interesting character here. Colton, no, you do not have to do the week's discussion question in the call. That's the whole perk. So, you are good to go. Yeah, like you guys said, lots of interesting women in the story. Helen in book 6 is described in an interesting way. If anybody is a victim in the story, you can argue that maybe it's Helen. Like, I kind of read her sympathetically, right? She was objectified because of her beauty, right? So she's forced against her will almost to fall in love with this other guy. And this starts this whole conflict. Everybody's mad at her because that's what starts the conflict. But she shows an interesting side of herself in book 6. I don't know if did you guys pick up on this, but when Hector goes to talk to Paris, she's kind of flirty with Hector. Did you guys pick up that vibe that she was kind of flirting with him a little bit? And Hector's not having it, right? Because Hector loves his wife. But
Is that when she tells him to sit down?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even not only that time, whenever the dad brought the body back, she's all like, nobody will sympathize with me anymore, and you were all I had. And
yeah,
but he shut her down real quick.
Yeah, she's pretty much insulting Paris to his face, and definitely putting the moves on Hector a little bit here. So yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that, Kaylee. That seemed a little flirty. But I always felt a little sorry for her. I always thought that she was kind of a victim. In that case, when she was flirting with Hector, maybe she did want a man of honor, right, rather than this coward who wouldn't go out and fight. So in a way, she's different than Andromache, Paris's or Hector's wife. Yeah, you guys will all see lots of references to Helen.
What about with the gods? How they are like, well, should we save him this time? And the nagging wife is like, you can't save him now because then everybody will want to save their sons, and that's not fair. And then it's just like, it's like they already know what's going to happen. So is it for their entertainment?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
And they're like, we'll send the messenger with you so you'll be safe on your trip. And they're in control of everything.
Honestly, if I was an omnipotent god, I would do the same thing. I just watch people fight for entertainment, please. Like I'd just be sitting there with my popcorn, just like, okay, these two are gonna fight over this random thing.
Because there's nothing better to do.
Right.
That's the plot of
Exactly.
the Hunger Games.
Yeah, the Greek gods are like humans watching cats fight, right? They just want to enjoy the spectacle, I guess you could say.
And even contribute to how it's going to play out.
Right.
I can kind of see them having like little betting booths and like
Yeah.
a random god just having like one of those little peanut carts, and this is like peanuts, come and get your peanuts. Like a whole stadium going on. Kind of like a baseball game in a way.
I thought it was interesting how Zeus cared for Hector as much as he did, and how he also wanted to be there for Achilles. Because he really did care for Hector.
Yeah, it's because
But it was more like he didn't want to disappoint Achilles' mother than anything, to me, I thought. I mean, he liked Achilles too, but he definitely didn't want to let the mom down.
yeah, it's because of Zeus. The reason why Hector's dead body doesn't get disfigured. Right.
Right. Because he drags it around and nothing happens to it. And when the messenger shows up, he asks him, he's like, just tell me, is my son's body gone? Is it? He says, no, you wouldn't believe it, it's perfect. He's been dragging it around I can't say it, Patroclus, and it's perfectly fine. So, and that's like a typical ego thing, dragging it, because you could just see him now with his arm up and dragging the corpse behind him. But Hector would have done the same thing. I feel like Hector would have done the same thing.
Well, he literally did with Patroclus. Right?
Yeah.
He definitely displayed the body to kind of try
And
to
took the armor.
the armor, right? Because
And I think
Patroclus
that
was
the
wearing
armor
his
plays
armor.
a big deal in it too. Because it was Achilles' armor, and he gave it to protect him, because I'm not going to try to say his name again. And then Hector took it, and then he got that new armor. But it's like a sign of stature.
Right. Yeah, it's a good way to demoralize the Greeks, right? Hey, we have this armor made by the gods for your great
Yeah.
hero. Right. Where is your hero anyway?
You know, it's like uncaging the beast when they did that.
Big mistake. Big mistake.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's read, Hector's kind of read as being cowardly because he actually runs from Achilles when they get ready to fight, right? They run laps around the city. You can't really blame Hector in that case, right? Like, this guy's invincible. Like, what chance do I got? But the way that Hector eventually dies is bad too, right? He seems to have an upper hand on Achilles. He's a more skilled warrior. He's just not blessed by the gods. But Athena plays that trick on him. That's the only way that Hector actually goes down. So I always thought that was cruel to Hector, right? He actually seems to be winning.
Yeah, he probably would have. That's the part that made me feel like it was just the brother Apollo and Athena, because it was Apollo that was for Hector, right?
Right.
And he had Apollo on his side just about all the way up until then. And then Athena came and helped. And that's when she was talking about, well, you can kick and scream and all you want. It's gonna be this way. So it was like a brother and sister war that they were putting on down there. kind of.
Now, you would think that the sun god would have more power than the goddess of wisdom, right? But
Yeah.
not necessarily the case.
Turn that off. Sorry, my husband works third shift.
No, you're good. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. I think we hit most of the main points. There's some stuff that we didn't get to talk about too much, but we will go over in future weeks. Like, I didn't get to talk about epic poetry conventions too much. We'll do that very soon because we're reading several epic poems that are kind of like this throughout the class. Paradise Lost is one. The Iliad and Dante's Inferno or other epics. So I'll tie in a future lesson. I'll tie those back to this. Well, just as a couple of other things, if you guys want to reinforce this, your reading, there's the famous movie done in the 2000s named Troy. Like, if you haven't seen that, it's got Brad Pitt as Achilles. And there's also a Netflix TV show about the Trojan War called Troy, I think. So if you guys want to watch a visual, a film adaptation, right there, I actually watched the Netflix show. It's actually pretty good.
What Netflix show?
There's a Netflix show about the Iliad. I think it's called Troy. There's also a movie called Troy about this that has Brad Pitt as
I saw on that discussion post that you posted from a previous class, that kind of threw a lot of people off, didn't it? Because there was a lot of differences in the movie and in the, which there usually is. But I noticed that I've never seen that movie, but it did throw a lot of people off.
Yeah, it's worth your time. I think Ridley Scott was the director. He directed a lot of famous films, Blade Runner, Alien. So yeah, it's a good film. The show's good too.
I liked 300.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites.
That was a good movie.
There's also a really popular modern novel called A Song of Achilles.
Oh, I've been wanting to read that. It's on my to be read list. I heard it's very good.
Yeah, I started it over the summer. I'm still working on it, but it's a retelling of the story through Patroclus's point of view. So you get a lot about the relationship between him and Achilles, and then you get his telling of the story all the way up to his death. So it's really cool. It's told in a novel form. It was just written a couple of years ago, and it won a bunch of book awards and stuff. So if you guys want to continue your reading, that book is really popular right now. You see it in the bookstores and stuff all the time. So let me really quickly, let me get down everybody who's here, and then I will let you guys go for the evening.
I think that when we do the Renaissance, that'll be cool too.
What just the readings from that time period?
Yeah, just the genre.
Yeah. Have you read any Shakespeare before?
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. Sometimes in my classes, people come in, they haven't read any. Sometimes people come in with a pretty good foundation. I guess we're reading Hamlet. That's one of the big ones. But Milton, Dante, all that stuff, you can't get any better than those readings.
What's that story where I don't know why Dante's Inferno makes me think of it, but it's like a hole, a pit that everybody goes in, and it's just like madness. It's like a pit of madness, and there's like disease and do you know what I'm talking about?
I think that might be one of the circles of hell in Dante's Inferno.
Well, I keep thinking every time you say Dante's Inferno, I keep thinking back to this. It's like something that I read and talked about, but it was I think I did a paper on it. But every time I think it's something in Dante's Inferno, but it's like a hell that you can't get out of.
Yeah.
I was about to say, didn't Dante write like a book on like heaven and purgatory too?
Yeah, the whole book's called The Divine Comedy. Part 1's Inferno, Part 2's Purgatory, Part 3's Heaven. So usually
Maybe I just read
in this
hell.
class you only learn about hell because hell instigates a lot more discussion than heaven, ironically.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, it was a very fun first discussion. I think we're going to have a really good group this semester on Monday evenings. So I'm excited. I think you guys can see my enthusiasm for all the stuff we're reading. I love all this stuff. So, again, next Monday we won't meet until the Labor Day. You guys will do a discussion post. But that week after, we will discuss next Monday's reading during that class the week after. So the week after, we'll read Oedipus, but we'll also talk about Medea. So we'll kind of conflate all those plays into one class Monday, 2 weeks from now.
And then hopefully that guy will come and talk about the Quran or Quran.
Yeah, I bet he will. I'm gonna ask him if he'll do that. I'm sure he would be happy to.
It's hard to read, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about it, but not enough to give you what he would. So I'm a practicing Roman Catholic, so when we get to Dante's Inferno and stuff, I'll be able to give you guys lots of context on the Catholic faith and how it's different than a lot of Protestant faiths and stuff. So that'll probably be a perspective a lot of you guys haven't gotten before, because there's not a lot of Catholics in the area. So.
I was raised Catholic, but we go to Baptist church when we go now. So, right. But I'm from New Jersey.
Well, I'm technically raised Christian, but I lean towards an agnostic type of view. But I'm really interested in like learning about other like cultures or religions.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys will get a lot of religion in class. There's a ton of it. We'll cover the Reformation and Martin Luther split the church up, and all that good stuff. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it, guys. It'll be a great class. So, you guys made the right choice taking mine instead of another.
I wish I would have took your Gothic class.
You should have. It was awesome.
Well, I had Lily Teeters. She was a good teacher. I liked her.
Yeah, she's a really good teacher.
I liked her a lot, but I'm more into Frankenstein. Would have been cool.
Yeah, I read it in high school actually, because I read it in my English class, but I liked going over it again, and I kind of like how it's tying into this class because we're reading Paradise Lost.
Right.
Because I was dying to read that book ever since I heard about it in that book.
Yeah,
and then your theater students are with Medea, so I'm slacking.
Honestly, I'm kind of interested in Oedipus too because of, I don't know, I heard about that story and it kind of gives me like a little bit of, this might be a weird comparison, but it kind of gives me like Psycho vibes because of like the main character who's obsessed with his mom. He doesn't marry his mom, but like still he's obsessed with her.
Yeah, that's purposeful. We'll talk about that in a week or two. The theater
What is that
students,
in?
the theater students will talk about that tomorrow.
See, I'm not up to par. All right, guys, I'm gonna go.
All right, take care, guys. You all have a
Bye.
good evening.
It was nice to meet everybody and finally see everybody.
You too.
Thank you, everybody.